my lovelies. Today we are talking about 10 money lessons that I learned from this book by Morgan Housel called Psychology of Money. And this video is basically a part of a new book club series that I am starting on this channel because a lot of you asked me to do book reviews and talk about books that have been helpful. So in this series, we'll be talking about my favorite books and the lessons and insights that I've learned from them. Now, for this particular book, I loved how empathetic the tone was and how much of a focus there was with our emotional connection with money. That is my favorite thing about this book, honestly. And it's not just a book about money. It draws so many parallels between making money and living life. So you can take away a lot of life lessons from this book as well. It is beautifully divided into 20 chapters. They are simple, they are crisp, to the point. It's a very thin book, honestly. Yeah, so about 220 pages, that's it. So there's a lot of information packed in 220 pages. You can finish it in one sitting if you want to. It is very well structured. It is simple to read. It is simple enough for everybody to understand, and it has a lot of relatable material. So I give this a 9 on 10. And this is like my quick book review. And now let's get into the lessons. So my first takeaway from this book is to never underestimate the power of luck. Now, for most of us, when we look at our own financial outcomes and when we look at the financial outcomes of other people, of successful people, we mostly attribute it to their actions and to the decisions that they've taken in life. But we forget to account for the factor of luck. And luck has a huge role to play, right? You can make all the right financial choices, take the right actions, make the right decisions, and still end up losing money. On the other hand, there might be somebody who makes the worst financial decisions possible, but they inherit wealth and they end up becoming wealthier than you. And those are factors that are outside of your control, and they are very, very important to consider when you look at your own financial journey. So this basically has a twofold effect. It prevents you from comparing your journey and your level of success to other people, of course. And it also helps you learn from broader patterns rather than trying to replicate outlier journeys of people. For example, if somebody doesn't understand this concept and they look at Bill Gates and they think, oh my God, if I do everything that Bill Gates has done so far, I might be where he is in the next 15, 20, 30 years. But that's not the case. Bill Gates has had his set of unfair advantages that you can't replicate. You have to work with your set of unfair advantages to get where you want to get, rather than trying to replicate the journey or the success of somebody else who you are comparing yourself to. The second thing that I've learned from this book is that we need to find our enough. Now, if our expectations keep rising with our results, there is no logic in striving for more because you will keep feeling the same after putting in extra effort. Now, this is a beautiful quote. I absolutely love this. Oftentimes in life, it's very easy to have a goalpost that continues to move. So let's say my goal right now is to reach 100k subscribers on YouTube. But once I achieve 100k subscribers, am I going to be happy? No, I will want 500k subscribers or 1 million subscribers, right? The only way to end this cycle is to realize what is enough for us. And that means getting ourselves out of this trap of comparing ourselves with somebody who is better than us. Because in life, there is always going to be somebody who is better than us. There's always going to be somebody who is making more money, who has a better lifestyle, who's better looking, who does better in every aspect of life. And we never compare ourselves with the people behind us. We always compare ourselves with the people ahead of us. And that is why that cycle is never ending. So the only way to put an end to this cycle is to stop comparing ourselves, one, and then figure out where our particular enough lies. What is enough for me, for Adete? Because when I do that, I am not constantly chasing after a goal. I can be content with what I have. If I have my system in place, I know that I will get to that goal at one point in time or another. And once I do, I don't have to keep chasing. And one other thing that Housel really mentions and that really resonates with me here is that you need to have a set of non-negotiables in life. Things that you are not going to risk for money. Your values, your principles, your reputation, your family, your friends, those are just a few examples, but everybody has a different set of non-negotiables. And these are things that are never, ever worth risking for money. The next lesson, and this is one of my favorites, is to keep increasing your savings and decreasing your expenses at the same time. Now, Housel says that saving is the only variable that you can actually control. Despite all of the effort that you put in, every other variable when it comes to making money is things that you can't control, how much money you're going to make. You might know a ballpark, but the exact amount of money that you're going to make is never fully in your control because you rely on other people, on outside forces to make it Whether the stock market is going to go up or down is not in your control. So whether your investments will make money or not is also not in your control, right? The only factor that you really truly control is the percentage of your income that you actually save. What is the physical amount of money that you put away every time for your future self? So I'm not the kind of person who's going to go ahead and tell you to save 50% of your income. If you're making 20,000 a month, save 10,000 of it, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. We should be allowed to spend on the things that we want and the things that we desire. But what this point really taught me is to save even when you don't have a specific goal in mind. Earlier, when I had started making money, I used to only save for things that I wanted. Right? So if I want to take a trip, for example, I would save up money and then use up that money for that trip. But when I didn't have a goal in the near future, I did save. I spent all the money that I earned. And that actually led me to a situation where I didn't have a lot of financial stability in my life. And once I realized that saving is extremely important. Putting aside money to have your sense of financial freedom is so important, even if you don't have a goal in the immediate future. And this can only happen if you're controlling lifestyle inflation, which links to the previous point. So if your lifestyle or the expenditure on your lifestyle basically continues to increase every time your income increases, you are going to be stuck in this vicious cycle where you are just spending money to maintain a lifestyle that after a point in time becomes unaffordable. And this is basically ego spending. You feel that you need to have certain things, or you need to showcase certain things to portray that you have a certain lifestyle, that you make a certain amount of money, when in reality that is not actually the case. True wealth comes from having the freedom to spend your time however you want, not be tied up in material possessions. And that is the next lesson that I absolutely love from this book, is that time is our highest form of wealth. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want is priceless. It is the highest dividend that money pays. So the true value of money is in the flexibility and the freedom that it can buy us. Now, for most people on the planet, you are trading time for money. You need to work a certain number of hours. You need to put in that work to be able to earn X amount of money or Y amount of money, right? If you stop putting in that time, you're not going to make that money. Now, does this mean that you don't do your jobs and all of us should get into businesses? That's not what I mean. Even with your jobs, if you're saving right and you're investing right, you can continue to grow your wealth. But to do that, you really need to understand this fundamental, that time is money. Because studies again and again have shown that even after a certain period of time, when your income is exponentially increased, your happiness doesn't exponentially increase with your increase in income. It only increases with an increase in the time that you have to spend on things that you really want to do. Because the fact is that we can always make more money, but we cannot gain more time. Time spent is gone forever. So understanding this and using money to buy back your time is probably the most productive use you can have for your money. The next lesson in this book is to stop living in the extremes. Now, a lot of people, including myself, when I started making money, I was of the thought process that, I am young and I'm wild and I am making money and I'm always going to be, making money. So it's okay to spend whatever I earn on things that I want and, on crazy adventures, on traveling, blah, 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 whatever I wanted at that point in time. But the fact of the matter is that we as human beings are very bad at estimating what our life is going to look like 10 years from now. Like at 20, I could not have predicted that this is what I'd be doing 10 years from then. Now at 30, I can't predict what I'd be doing at 40. And because we're so bad at estimating this, we never can truly plan for the future because, we don't know what the future is going to look like. And this is why having a conservative approach towards saving and investing your money is a very beneficial thing to do, which means that you continue to save and invest even when you don't have a goal or a plan for the near future. Even if you don't think that this is something that's going to happen in the future, save for it anyway. It doesn't have to be a huge chunk. It can be a small amount if you think that this is not worth it in the moment, but still put aside money in your savings, in your investings every month, every time you earn money, so that you can plan for the unknown. You can have money saved up for things that you don't know are going to happen. The next lesson, and this I think everyone on the planet, every financial advisor on the planet has spoken about to death, is the magic of compounding, which is true not just for money, but also for life. There's this very famous quote that says, it takes 20 years to become an overnight success. And this is so true because when we look at somebody who's successful, we often see them at the pinnacle of their success. We have not seen the 10, 15, 20 years of hard work behind that have gone into it to make them a success that we see them as today. Morgan Housel actually gives the example of Warren Buffett in the book and how he has about an $84 billion net worth, but $81 billion out of that were made after his 65th birthday. So this guy had been investing since the age of like 14, 15. I keep forgetting the age, until 65. That's like 50 years. And after that is when he has made the chunk of his money. That is how much effort he has put into it. And that is how compounding works. And our minds honestly cannot comprehend that. I will give you the example of my own YouTube channel. Now, you guys who have joined just now might see it, as a channel that is suddenly growing and suddenly coming in front of you. But honestly, I have been creating content for 10 years. I have tried creating my own content. I have worked with brands. I have worked with multiple creators. And it is all of that knowledge, all of that understanding that is now compounding into the growth of this particular YouTube channel. It's the same with money, which is why people tell you to start investing as soon as possible and to have that investment for a longer period of time, because you will only see the beauty, the magic of compounding when you've had it for a period of time with patience. The next lesson is that getting wealthy and staying wealthy are two different things. This is not something that I used to understand earlier, but I think this quote puts it into perspective really well. Getting money requires taking risks, being optimistic and putting yourself out there, but keeping money requires the opposite of taking risk. It requires humility and the fear that what you've made can be taken away from you just as fast. The best example of getting wealthy versus staying wealthy, I think, is lottery winners. When people suddenly gain so much money and now they have wealth, right? This is wealth that they can put to good use. But if they don't understand how to do that, if they don't fundamentally understand how to use that wealth to make more money, they can just end up spending it very, very quickly, which is why you hear of lottery winners going bankrupt or broke very, very quickly. So how I understand this point is to be risky with the career moves that I'm taking, right? And with the direction that my career is going in. So for example, I quit my 9 to 5 to pursue a business because I believe that compounds faster in terms of earning more money or making more money. But to be very, very safe with the money that I have made as a result of those risks that I've taken. So if, let's say, I started a business today and I ended up earning 1 crore in a year, the natural tendency would be to spend the majority of it on lifestyle inflation, on buying a better car, maybe buying a house. Not that you can get a good house in 1 CR in metro cities anymore. Let's just use that for example's sake. That, if I make 1 CR in a year, I use it to buy a house and spend on a car. And just like that, 80-90% of my income is gone. And that is not wealth that I have built. On the other hand, I can be smart with that money. I can choose to invest it upfront. I can use it to buy an investment property rather than just buying a house upfront, and then use that to make more money and then eventually buy the kind of house that I wanted, right? So in the second scenario, I'm being safer with my money, but I'm ensuring that the money that I've earned continues to earn me more money so that I am secured financially for years to come, instead of spending it all in one go and being risky with it. Another example that I can give you is that I never invested in crypto, even at the peak when people were going crazy about it and saying, that this is the currency to invest in and this is going to make you so much money. And I think that was a sound financial decision because I never felt comfortable putting my hard-earned money in something that was that volatile and that risky, because that was not money that I was willing to lose in case that bet didn't work out. The next one is error and endurance. So now what Housel says in the book is that room for error lets you endure a range of potential outcomes, and endurance lets you stick around long enough to let the odds of benefiting from a low probability outcome fall in your favor. Now, what this basically means is that while it's important to plan, and we all plan for, our financial future, our financial outcomes, you cannot plan for everything. You don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen in the next moment. And that is why it is very, very important to have that margin of error, that room for error in your planning. The easiest way that I can explain this is that earlier when I used to block or create like my calendar with events every day, I had it blocked to the T, that 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. I'm going to go to the bathroom and have my coffee and, have my nuts, etc. And then 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. I'm going to do deep focus work on XYZ thing. And I used to define it like to the T. So much so that I did not have 1 second free on my calendar. And what that ended up doing was leaving no margin for error. So for instance, if the deep work that I'm doing for 1.5 hours in the morning took 2 hours, for instance, that threw my whole schedule out for the day. Because if that half hour, everything becomes half hour delayed, by the time I reach to the end task of the day, that doesn't get done because everything is now delayed. And then when I started accounting for margin of error, so let's say I account 1.5 hours of time for X work, I will now always give myself 2.5 hours because I need to have that 1 hour extra buffer as margin for error, because everything that can go wrong will probably go wrong. And that is just as true for your financial planning, for your financial outcomes as well. At the same time, it is also important to calculate your mental endurance capabilities. So let's say that you save up enough money to quit your job and live worry-free for 2 years. You have 2 years of living expenses saved up, right? And then you decide to quit your job and start to pursue your dreams to figure out what it is that you really want to do. And now while you're doing that, once you go through like 3 or 4 months of burning through the cash that you have saved up, you start getting this panic and this anxiety that, oh my God, this is not something that I can do. What if my financial resources burn out before 2 years? What am I going to do then? And that stress causes you to go back to your job that you had. In this case, you did not have the mental capacity or the mental endurance to deal with that margin of error. So the 2 things that you need to account for when you're planning for your financial future and your financial goals is 1, margin of error, like the actual physical error. So let's say you have saved up 2 years of expenses and then you realize that you actually need 3x more than what you have saved up to survive for 2 years. So that's physical room for error. And then you have your endurance level to account for. Are you emotionally capable of dealing with the stress of that error? So let's say that you realize that the money that you saved up is only enough for 6 months and not 2 years. Are you mentally capable of dealing with that stress and not resorting to your previous plan in the face of failure? And this brings us to my final and my most favorite lesson, is to account for our emotional relationship with money, rather than just looking at it as a tool or as a rational means to an end. Human beings are emotional creatures, and our relationship with money is just as much emotional as it is physical or rational, right? So rationally, I might understand that it makes sense to buy things on EMI, or it makes sense to buy, a house on a home loan and a car on a car loan, because you can write off the taxes on the car loan and you can write off the taxes on the home loan, and then the amount for the EMI you can save and invest and earn interest on it, XYZ. But for somebody like my mom who doesn't understand that concept, having that weight of the mortgage on their head, having that weight of the loan on their head is so much more stressful than actually paying up for the house up front, that they would much rather do that. Because in the end, money is a means to an end. It is supposed to help us live a better life. It is supposed to help us become more stress-free, become more financially free, lead better lives, have better outcomes. But if that same money is giving you more stress, is causing more harm than good, then it's not doing its job and you are going wrong somewhere. So it's very, very important to account for our emotional relationship with money. What are the actions and the outcomes that actually relieve our stress, even though they might not be the most rational thing to do? So those were my favorite lessons from the psychology of money. I hope you enjoyed this video and stay tuned for more book club videos.